Hello and welcome back. In today's lecture, let's talk about the types of plans. This will be the concluding lecture of chapter number 4, planning. So under this topic of types of plans, there are broadly two categories, which are single use plan and then standing plan. The book definition as per single use plan is that a single use plan is developed for a one-time event or a project. Such a course of action is not likely to be repeated in future. Okay, let us see an example. When I was working in corporate, we had an ERP migration project. The company where I was working, it was using a version of SAP called R3. So imagine SAP is a software similar to Tally. It is an accounting software, but much more comprehensive and a robust software than compared to Tally. So under SAP, there are many versions of SAP, one of which you can select and use for your accounting purposes. The company where I was working, they were using R3 version of SAP. From R3, they moved into S4 version of SAP. It was actually called S4 HANA. So we had a project called S4 HANA project, which means the whole company had to work as a team together because the software is extremely complicated. It involved almost 500 to 600 people. So all of them have to give their requirements, how the new software should look like. It was a pretty big project. It was a huge team event. I was in the audit department and we were the part of the steering committee of that project. So my boss was actually a steering committee member. So he was the one who drafted exactly how this migration should take place. I clearly remember that the project migration commenced in August 2018 and the project ended in March 31st, 2019 because from April 1st, 2019, the company decided to cut R3 and move fully into S4 full time. So it took us from August 2018, 5 months plus in 2019, 3 months. So totally 8 months it took us to move from R3 version of SAP to S4 version. So that means it was a big project, but it was a one-time project. Now the company might still be using S4 HANA software. They might be using this for another, who knows, 8-9 years. So this is how one-time projects work. There will be some special case event. For that, whatever that we had planned at the beginning of August, we had a clear plan of how we are going to carry out this migration activity. So that is single use plan. And once the project was completed, once the migration is over, nobody needed to use this plan anymore because whatever we wanted to accomplish, we accomplished. It was a one-time thing, so done. In your case, you can even also remember, let's say you want to build a house. So you are going to build only one house. So it's like a single event that is going to happen. So how are you going to build a house? Are you going to buy a house? Are you going to buy a land and construct a house? All these things. So these are all the things that will come under single use plan. Now standing plan is anything that plans that are made for recurring activities or recurring events. Normal day-to-day work, how are we going to conduct? They will come under standing plan. So audit plan, production plan, sales plan. Let's say every week the sales team will assemble and they will have a target. They will say, okay, this week we are targeting 15 or 20 distributors. We are pushing product X, Y, and Z and we are pushing it at this price. How many quantities are we planning to push? How much total value of sales we are going to make? So that will be discussed at the beginning of every week, and then at the end of the week, they will have a review of whatever happened during the week, and in the next week, they will course correct and make a slight modification, and they will make a relatively new plan in the next week. This goes on week after week, fortnight after fortnight, month after month, year after year. So this is standing plan. We are done with these two broad categories of plan, which are single use and standing plan. Now in the material, you have been provided a lot of other isolated topics, standalone topics like objectives, strategy. It's like a glossary, but they all are related to this entire planning activity of management. So you are given objectives, strategy, policy, procedure, rule, and budget. Let us see them in detail one by one. So first is objectives. It is pretty similar to whatever we have discussed. We have been discussing in our entire business studies journey from chapter 1. So objectives are exactly goals. Objective is very business sounding term. Goal is kind of a sporty word. Anyway, if you want to understand or remember what is an objective, understand, okay, there is a goal, there is something to be achieved, so that is objective. To give you an example, in our previous lecture, we discussed about planning process in detail with the help of a case study. In that, the very first step of planning process is setting objectives. So I gave you an example of an ice cream company, and I had outlined 3 objectives that could be for an ice cream company. As an ice cream company, our current sales could be 40 to 50 lakhs per annum, and we will have a target, we will have a goal of doubling that sales and raising it to 1 crore per annum. So that was an objective. So objectives can be short term, objectives can be long term. Short term objectives can be anything that what we can do in the next 3 months or 6 months. Long term objectives can be anything that you have in mind for the next 5 years, where you want to see yourself in 7 years. That is long term objective goals. So goals can be short term goals, long term goals, the same concept only. So let's go to the next term, which is strategy. Strategy is what you design after you draft your objectives. Let's say in your case, let's take your case. I ask you, where do you see yourself in the next 10 years? If you are watching this video, most likely you should be in your class 12, and most likely you should be 16 or 17 years old. Where you see yourself 10 years from now? I ask you, by the age 27, where do you want to be in your life? So you will give me a rough idea of, I want to do business or I want to be in employment. Okay, then for being in employment, what stage or what status you want to reach in your employment? Then you might say, I want to see myself in middle management or upper middle management. You can say. Then the next question is, by doing what you will reach that place? So that is strategy. Let's say you want to be in business, then that means you have to do BCom and then you have to do MBA from a good university. If you do MBA from a good college, you will learn a lot about the art of doing business, the science of doing business. That will really help in your entrepreneurial journey. So this is a strategy. Overall outline. I will do step A, step B, step C, and I will reach my objective. So that is strategy. Now you should not confuse yourself between strategy and tactics. So strategy talks about in 10 years, in 20 years, I want to be a big businessman. To be a big businessman, I have to study MBA. Then I have to start my first business. Then I will scale my business and then maybe sell the business for, who knows, 10 crores, 20 crores. Then I will open my second business. It goes like that. This is a large outline version. This is strategy. Now the tactics is much more detailed. In strategy, we will not talk about detail. Okay. Now what is a detail? What is a tactic? You said, to become a businessman, I want to study MBA from a good college. This is strategy. Now tactic is which college you should study, which batch you should study. You should take up morning college or evening college. Should you study in a tier 1 college or tier 2 college? These are all details. These are all tactics. How you should study MBA, what percentage you should clear MBA. These are all details. Now understand, strategy is a rough outline of, rough game plan of how to achieve your long-term objectives. Strategy is always long-term in nature. Let's talk about the next term, which is policy. These are the examples of the policy that I had seen in my previous work. Almost all the case studies and references that I give you here are the things that I directly experienced firsthand in my job environments. Okay, so if I have to explain policy, the company where I worked, there were a lot of policies. Some examples I will give you: travel policy, smartphone policy, and furniture policy. Policies are the things, like it will be in a written document. It details about what the company sets like a criteria. Okay, I'll tell you what is a travel policy. In the company where I worked, employees had to travel for business purposes. As I explained in many of my previous videos, I had to travel a lot in my work. So I was stationed at Chennai. My headquarters was in Chennai. From Chennai, I had to travel to Bangalore, Hyderabad, Vijayawada, Gujarat, Uttar Pradesh, West Bengal, Assam, almost everywhere inside the country, and sometimes we had to travel abroad also. But the travel policy states that I was in middle management, I was in grade 5C. It will say that if you are in grade 5C, you can travel by bus, train, or you can also take the help of an air transport. If you go to tier 1 city, you will get 550 rupees per day for boarding purpose. If you go to tier 2 towns, you will get 500 rupees per day for boarding purpose. And then if you go to a tier 3 town or a village, then you will get 400 rupees per day for boarding purpose, which is within this 500, 550, we have to manage our food there. Apart from this, we will also get a reimbursement for the lodging expenses. The lodging expenses, we have to provide a bill. So based on that, the bill that we can claim from the company. But the company with respect to food will give a flat allowance of 550. And the company also says that I was in grade 5, but let's say there was an employee who is much lower to me. Let's say he is in band or grade 7. Now this person cannot do air travel. So that means even if he has to go from Chennai and he has to attend a repair work or some training program in Mumbai factory, he has to go to Mumbai factory, he has to go only by train. And that too, for people under grade 7, the company where I worked, they can't even take up AC booking. So they have to come by sleeper train only, sleeper class only. So like this, there will be restrictions. People above my category, say people at grade 3 or people at grade 2, like senior management people, they will get more and more privileges. They will get even car facility, even AC car, luxury car facility. They will get airport pickups and everything. Their daily allowance in tier 1 city will be like around 1,000-1,500 per day. So like this, there will be a category, there will be a classification of how much is allowed to every person. So that is travel policy. To give you another example of smartphone policy, again the company where I worked, for my category, I was given an allowance of 15,000. I was given an allowance of 15,000 rupees for buying a smartphone. So at that time I bought a OnePlus phone. So that was around 33,000 rupees. So I paid 18,000 from my pocket. The company gave me an allowance of 15,000 rupees. But there was always some terms and conditions attached. So the policy stated that, okay, I will give you 15,000 rupees, but you have to stay within this company for 3 years to take the full use of 15,000 rupees. Now, let's say there is an employee who availed this policy, got 15,000. What if he immediately resigns and goes? It's a loss for the company only, right? So I also happened to work for 2 years after I bought the mobile. So the condition was to be for 3 years to get this full benefit of 15,000. So I stayed only for 2 years after I availed this policy. So while I came out of the company, I had to repay almost 2,700 or some 3,000 rupees back to the company. So this is how the smartphone policy worked. Similarly, there is also this furniture policy. Like this, the company will have a particular idea about how much we can allow, how much we can give as benefits to employees. And they cannot just like that give a blanket benefit to everybody at the same rate, because there will be grade within the company. So they will have to define limits. They will have to define certain permits. Okay, if you are above this grade, you will be allowed more allowances. If you are below this grade, lesser and lesser privileges for you. And then let's talk about procedure. Now understand the difference between policy and procedure. You must also heard of this term called SOP, Standard Operating Procedure. Procedure is anything that tells you the detailed steps on exactly how each work is performed. So you have to go there, do step number 1, take right, do step number 2, go straight, step number 3, like that. Now I will tell you the same travel policy versus travel procedure. Travel policy, you remember the story I explained you, it talks about the limits and allowances, how much each person gets and everything. Now travel procedure is how one should even initiate the travel. So first, let's say, as I said, I was from Chennai office. So I have to go to Mumbai for a 10-day trip, a 2 weeks trip. Now I have to raise a travel request to my boss. There is a website for that, our internal company website for that. So I have to raise a travel request to my boss stating that on this day to this day I will not be in this office, Chennai office. I am going to Mumbai office for this purpose. Everything I have to mention in that portal, that travel request. Mostly my boss only would have asked me to do this. So directly he will accept that request, he will approve that request. The next step is, because I am going from Chennai to Mumbai, the travel ticket will be booked by the company only. It's a long trip, so travel ticket will be booked by company, either by train or by flight. Mostly for my cadre, I always get a flight allowance. So the moment my boss accepts the request, an admin team will automatically get an alert that okay, a person named Harish is going from Chennai to Mumbai on this date. So the admin team automatically will book a ticket for me and send the ticket copy to me. Then I will do the travel and I will come back. After I come back, after 14 days, I have to go back to the website again. I said I will get 550 per day, isn't it? So for 14 days, I will get the boarding allowance. Then whatever the lodging expenses I did there, I will get that. I will have to submit the hotel bill, the lodge bill. So that will also be sent to the finance department for verification. All those things, cab expense, food expense, incidental expense, everything. If it is allowable, then the company will pay, or else the company will disallow. Now this is travel procedure. An employee, if he has to go to a place, what are all the limits? That is travel policy. Travel procedure is the employee really goes to a particular place, completes a travel and comes back. Now what are all the exact steps to be done by this employee to get the reimbursement? Ultimately the objective is to get the money back, because I have done work for the company, I have spent money on the way, my personal money on the way, so company has to return it back to me, reimburse it back to me. So what are all the procedures that it will be done? So the same way, SOP is for the entire company. As an audit executive, our job was to draft the SOP. How each and everything you have to do procedurally. For example, an SOP will look exactly like this. You have to boil a milk. The step one is go to kitchen, switch on the light, wash the milk packet, then cut the milk, then pour the milk carefully into the bowl, then switch on the gas. I know it's a trivial example of boiling a milk, it's very obvious, we do it quite naturally, but in company level, you don't take anything for granted, you don't take anything for it is quite obvious. We have to mention step by step, even it sounds very silly. So that is procedure. So, I hope you understood the difference between policy versus procedure. Now let's talk about a rule. Rule is anything that is stronger than a policy. Policy is like almost like a rule, but it is like defining limits and defining boundaries. But rule is much more. It's more of a behavior oriented. It's more of a order oriented. Now in the company where I worked, we had rules for dress code, rules for work hours, rules for browsing, rules for exclusivity. There were again a lot of rules. When you get into job environment, you will have to follow a lot of rules. The first thing is rules of dress code. Again, you cannot wear sleeveless, you cannot wear shorts, and also on Monday you have to wear a uniform. So that is the dress code aspect. Work hours, you have to work, you have to be within the premises for 9 hours a day, and half an hour will be used for lunch. So totally you have to work for 8.5 hours every day. So that was the rules regarding work hours. And then exclusivity is an example where, okay, if you are working in this company, you should not do any other business which is in direct competition between this company. So I worked in an FMCG company. Now I cannot have a private business, a personal business, which is in direct competition with the company that I work for. So let's say the company I worked manufactured shampoos. Now I cannot personally, on my private basis, on my personal basis, set up a separate shampoo distribution company or a shampoo manufacturing company. So that is exclusivity. If the company really gets to find that I'm doing a competitive business by working inside that company, I will be liable for some legal action. Then one more rule I will give you. Rule of no conflict. Okay, let's say a couple of people are working in a team and they happen to like each other, and let's say they are going to marry each other. Then one of them should resign from this company. So that will lead to conflict of interest. So husband and wife cannot work within the same company. There are companies that have a strong rule like that. So either the husband has to resign and go find another job, or the wife has to resign and find another job. So that is a rule of no conflict. Like this, there are so many rules that can operate. And finally, budget. Budget is a statement again. It is prepared that explains how much money, time, and human resources can be allocated to a particular department. I come from audit team, so I will give you whatever worked in that audit team, whatever we had as budget. Now, the managing director will give my boss an annual budget, like how he does for every team. At the beginning of every year, my boss will get an allowance of roughly 20 lakh for the whole year, which means there were 6 to 7 people in the audit team. This 20 lakhs should be used for all the travel that I mentioned. For explaining this concept of policy, I told you about my travel of me going from Chennai to Mumbai for 14 days, isn't it? If I go from Chennai to Mumbai for an audit for a 2-week period, it will roughly cost the company almost 50,000 per person. So if 2 of us go, it will cost 1 lakh for the company. The flight ticket itself will cost around 15 to 20,000. Then we have to stay there. Then we have our food expenses. All those things will add up. So for 2 weeks, it will cost the company 50,000 at least to 1 lakh. If let's say we are going as a 3 people, 4 people team, it will definitely cost 1.5 to 2 lakhs. Now like this, we will be carrying out a lot of travel, lot of audit. So the audit team will be incurring a lot of expense. So the managing director has to set a limit at the beginning of the period and curtail the team. This year, do work freely, but the maximum financial allowance is 20 lakhs. For all the work that you are doing for this company, the budget I'm giving you is 20 lakhs. Similarly, a marketing team will get a marketing budget. So marketing team will get slightly higher budget because they deal with advertisement and everything. So if it is a listed company, usually they will say, okay, this year we have to advertise in IPL. This year we have to advertise in World Cup and Premier League, a lot of high profile competitions. So they will get budgets like 10 crore, 15 crores like that. So depending on the size of the department, depending on the nature of work that department carries out, the central management will give you the budget for each and every team. At the end of every year, the expenses incurred by the manager should not go beyond 20 lakhs. So my boss had a responsibility of carrying out all the audit projects within this financial budget. So in case special occasions, unavoidable situations, it might go beyond 20 lakhs, but that should be very rare. So that is the concept of budget. To give you even a simple example, the money that pocket allowance that parents give to their children. Okay, I will give you 200 rupees for this week. Whatever after school things, print out, Xerox, whatever that you want to take, Pani Puri, whatever that you want to do for yourself, do within this 200. Don't ask me any money beyond that. There are many houses that follow this type of system, isn't it? So that is pretty much budget for you. Now, I'm not going to explain what is method and what is program because I really don't see any big difference, to be honest. It looks very academic, it looks very theoretical. Procedure is similar to method. I really don't see a difference between what is procedure and what is method. And also program, I really don't understand what they are trying to talk in the NCERT material. So I'm not going to take these two things. So for your academic purpose, I would just say, read that passage again and again, almost by heart it. And if they ask you an exam, just write whatever it is there. So you have traveled with me so far in this entire planning chapter. I hope you understood the first function of management, which is planning. I hope you understood the concepts deeply. If you still have some more doubts, let me know in the comment section. From tomorrow, we will be discussing about organizing chapter. Thank you and bye-bye.